Hey, so yesterday I read a short story from 25 Impossible Tales of Survivors, Flawed Heroes, and Annoyed Villains, and I read Waking Up Alien. So today is a little bit of behind the scenes of what went into that story. When I wrote the story, I was taking part in a flash fiction challenge put on by Clarion West, which is a premier sci fi and fantasy writers workshop that's kind of ongoing, and they have paid events, they have free events. The challenge I was taking part in was on Discord, and it was free, and it was just a lot of fun to take part in. So our prompt, I think, that week was to write something about someone feeling like an alien in a strange place. And I took that prompt kind of literally, really. I decided that I was going to have a human girl wake up in a place where she feels like she's the alien. And maybe she's the only one left of humanity. She doesn't know. And so, uh, yeah, it was a really short story. And yes, I kind of left her at a place where she just made a decision, but I like short stories that end like that. I read short stories that end like that by other authors, and I think it's fun to actually be able to imagine what happens to those characters next. And so I don't mind writing short stories like that, but I know I've had a lot of people say you really need to write the rest of her story. Then like, but I know what the rest of her story kind of is. Like I could just imagine it, but I know I probably should write it down, and maybe I will someday. But mainly, just what went into that story was a moment of imagination and wondering what it would be like to really feel like the only human left in the universe. And that would be hard, right? Really, really hard. But the true like challenge in that moment is to find purpose and to know that there's meaning still in living life. And so I wanted to show a character being resilient in that moment. And I think in a way I can think back on other experiences that I personally I've had. I've traveled to different places where I definitely haven't been the only human, but I've definitely been the only like American in a particular place. I one time rode a train in the Czech, in Czechia, and I was the only English speaking person on the train, or at least in the train car that I was in. And so I thought at least maybe one of the ticket takers for the train would speak English, but they really didn't. And yet, so I just stayed really quiet, and it was I think I had like an hour long train ride back into Prague, and from outside in the country, and I was by myself. I was traveling because one of my daughters competed in an international competition that was really cool, but I had done a little bit of touring in addition to watching her compete, and so this is that little bit of touring bit, and I was by myself again on this train. A friend of mine had a different trip and took their rental car a different direction, dropped me off at the train station. Jumped on this train, and again, no one spoke English. I muddled through. I had, I didn't have Google Translate at that time on my phone, but I just kind of muddled through with please and thank you, and I had a really good experience. I think some of the people thought it was funny that I didn't speak their language, and they may have laughed at me, and that's okay with me. It was really okay with me to be laughed at because I didn't learn enough of the language, other than like please and thank you and excuse me and where is the bathroom and that kind of thing. So I think it's a good thing to experience what it's like to travel and not be the person with the dominant language in the situation that you're in. It's maybe, well, yes, I think it would be beneficial to really learn more of the language when you're traveling someplace. And it shows a respect for the culture that and kindness and preparation for your trip. I wasn't sure I was going to go on that trip, which is part of the reason I hadn't prepared very much in advance. But I really I'm really thankful that I was able to take the trip. I'm thankful for all the experiences I had there and how kind people were to me. So I can say that it is interesting to be that person who doesn't fit in. And I mean, yes, as a kid, I got bullied and I didn't fit in for other reasons. But when you travel and you don't fit in because you're from a different culture, it's different. And then be bullied like because you don't fit in that way. When you're traveling and you don't fit in and you're polite and you ask for help, a lot of times people are very kind, and you find out how beautiful humanity is that way. And so I'm really thankful for those experiences. And I'm not going to say I was foolish. I tried to be as wise as I could in my travels about my own safety. But again, there are situations that I ended up in where I didn't speak the language on this entire train car, on that entire train car. And another time I got lost in Budapest, and I was only like 2 blocks over from the main tourist area, but 2 blocks over was enough that I ended up in a coffee shop trying to ask for directions, and it was pretty funny, uh, but they did get me back on track pretty quickly. And again, everyone was very nice, and maybe they laughed at me. It was perfectly fine. I had to laugh at myself too, right? So I think this story kind of came out of all of those types of experiences and feeling like you just don't fit in some way, but not necessarily in a bad way, just in a maybe don't know the language, don't know the culture, don't know the expectations of the people around you. And so I was kind of trying to bring all that experience into this really short sci-fi story about what it was like for a young woman to wake up on an alien spaceship surrounded by 3 different types of aliens who all know each other and seem to understand each other. And, she's terrified, but she also has the opportunity to find out what's going on. And so, and they're kind to her. I wanted to show that because I think a lot of times we have alien stories where the aliens are just trying to kill off humanity, right? And, maybe, maybe that would happen, but also maybe we're looking at the universe through the wrong lens, through a paranoid lens, if you will. I think that yes, the world is a hard place sometimes and can be a scary place, and so that means probably the universe can also be a scary place sometimes. But because I believe in God, I believe that there's design to the universe and there's love and light in the universe, and that people, or in this case, this story, that waking up alien, the aliens are not necessarily all going to be terrible. There might be some that are, but there are also going to be some that are kind and loving and a light to others. So thankfully, my character in the story, Waking Up Alien, happened to run into some aliens who were in the more of a light to others and more kind. Maybe it didn't have to go that way. I could have written a story from a very different perspective, but that's the one I chose to go with because, I don't know, I was the mood I was in at the time I wrote the story. So thank you for joining me. If you like this video or any of my videos, please click the subscribe button or click the like button or both. That'd be really cool. And I will see you around next time with another short story from this book, and then another behind the scenes video, and then I'll have like a theme of the week video where I talk about both stories. So again, thank you for joining me.